I never shared this story before for one simple reason. Nobody outside of this community would be able to appreciate the story. So this is the first time I'm sharing this story, literally. I shared it with my wife and my children. They didn't believe me. Maybe you'll believe me. I'll tell you when they did believe me. So I had the privilege of visiting Ra'anana last year. Many of you were here. It was Purim time, and it was shortly after the horrible tragedy. When is actually the yard sign? Tazayin Tevis. I think I came Shvat time before Purim. Tetzvav Tevis. So it was shortly after his death, his murder, Hashem Yinkom Damo, and all of the holy blood of our holy soldiers. And many of you were there. It was a very emotional and charged evening. And it was difficult. I came to Israel the day before. I went straight from the airport to Tel HaShomer, Shiva. Very, very difficult. That evening, I went to a dinner where I spoke at, and then I went to the hotel where many of the mufonim, those who were evacuated from Kfar Aza, were living with their families. And we sat there for hours listening to the experience of people who went through the worst of the worst, including Mr. Shamriz, whose son was one of the 3 soldiers that was killed before that by mistake by the Tzahal, together with Yotam Chaim. It was very, very difficult. Then early in the morning, I went with Rabbi Eliada and a few of the distinguished members of this amazing community, and we went to the south, and we visited kibbutzim, and we visited families, and we went to Reim and Kfar Aza, and I think we went to Zikim, to the Chof Hayam, where the attackers, where the terrorists came from, Yamach Shemo v'Zichro. And many homes and many individuals. I went to army bases. We went to Netzach Yehuda. I spoke for the soldiers. It was a long, long, intense day. Following which, we came here to Ra'anana and had a very, very beautiful event, which went longer than we expected, I think midnight. But of course, Rabbi Eliada Goldvicht, Yodea Lola Hachmitz Damnut. You know what that means? You learn Hebrew, you'll find out. So he tells me, if you don't mind, you didn't eat anything today, which was true. We didn't have much. I mean, we ate something. And so I invited, you're going to have dinner. My wife made a beautiful dinner, as Rebbetzin Goldvicht knows how to. So I invited a few chevra, just a little bit. Okay, I'm going to tell Rabbi Eliada no. Throw them out of the house. I don't need your dinner. Get me a bed. Anyway, I came home. Some beautiful balabatim came. We had a dinner. I don't know. It was like mamish sudah shloima b'shaitai. And it turned into a fabrengen, It turned into a fabrengen. Around 2 hours later, I think it's around 2 or 3, I'm ready to go to sleep. So Rabbi Goldvicht tells me, why don't you stay over in the house here tonight? Tomorrow morning, you'll go to Yerushalayim. I had a big Shabbaton in Tveria for Shabbos, for parents who are struggling with children who have left Yiddishkeit. And the relationship is very, very difficult. Many of you know about this. It's a very common phenomenon today. So there was a Shabbaton especially for these parents, but particularly from extremely ultra-Orthodox communities where besides everything else, there's extraordinary shame from within the family. So, it's trauma, within a little more. So I had a big Shabbaton in Tveria. So I told Rabbi Eliada, I need to go to Yerushalayim. I have what to do tomorrow in Yerushalayim, because I have to go tomorrow to Tveria early. He says, stay over 3 o'clock in the morning. Yesh l'cha mitah yafa b'bayit sheli. You'll go in the morning to Yerushalayim. The truth is, I wanted to be back. A friend of mine gave me an apartment of his, a beautiful apartment. And I was there myself. You have your own bed, your own shower. You know the feeling, yeah? your own bed, your own showers, or something nice called Home Sweet Home. Now, it wasn't Home Sweet Home, but Yerushalayim is everybody's home sweet home. And it was a beautiful apartment, and I enjoyed it there. And I needed already a little, what they call downtime privacy. אתם יודעים מה זה, כן? יש בארץ לפעמים, אין downtown פה בארץ. In America, we have a concept called downtime and privacy. זה לא כל כך שגור בארץ, כי כל אחד בעל הבית על כולם. אפילו נהגי מונית אומרים לך מתי להתקדש, להתגרש, מה לעשות, מה לא לעשות, למה לעשות לעלייה, וכו'. I'm just practicing my Hebrew so I can get invited to more lectures here in Israel. Anyway, so he said, stay here, it's not a good idea. I don't want to go. So you had a driver, Baruch Hashem, one of the chevra, who took me home, and I came home, I don't know, I think it was probably between 3 and 4 in the morning. Ani ayef, ratzut, tashush, איך אומרים באנגלית? שבו לרסיסים, רוצה קריאת שמע של המיטה, היה מיטה מאוד מאוד טובה. גם לא ידעתי איך המיטות פה במשפחת גולדוויך. הוא לא נתן לי tour from the whole house. So even though his wife is an American, from intelligentsia, but you never know what happens in Israel to people. Lo yodim, people's tastes develop. They go to Olam HaAtzilut, and they become very, very spiritual, and I'm still an American kid. Anyway, I was so happy to be back in that place, a beautiful building, really nice place. And I go in, and I come to my apartment, and I put in the combination to go in. There's a lo niftach, it's not opening, and I realize somebody locked it from inside. Okay. So even though it's already almost dawn, and the owner lives in New York, and he goes to sleep early, but b'makom she'enish and pikuach nefesh, and I knew it was at the verge of implosion inside. So I call him. I call him from in front of his house to America. I have his number. And I say, hi, my dear. Oh, shalom aleichem. How is it? How are you enjoying? I said, wonderful. I desperately need a bed. And I came to your apartment, and it's locked from inside. Somebody locked it from inside. I guess somebody went in. And I'm ringing the bell. I was ringing, even though I knew I was waking them at 4 in the morning. But again, a bed is a bed. And nobody's answering. Any way to help me? I don't know what to do. I didn't even know what I wanted from him. He said, Rabbi YY, I told you Thursday night till Mitzvah Shop till Sunday, I already rented the apartment to somebody. You could have it Wednesday night and Sunday night. But I told you Thursday night, Friday night, Mitzvah Shabbos, I rented it already a while ago. I'm sorry. I need lot of fasti. They said they locked it. So you need a hotel. Okay. Now, I had a lot of rentzlach. I had a lot of stuff, a lot of, how a Jew schleps, you never know what happens. So I was schlepping, I had a lot of stuff. People gave me books. Of course, there was a suitcase for food and a suitcase for other stuff. So now I need a hotel. Okay, no problem. A lot of hotels in Yerushalayim, and there were hotels right nearby. So I schlepp my rentzlach, mizvadot sheli, and I go to one hotel, we're booked. I go to a second hotel, we're booked. I go to a third hotel, we're booked. Every hotel I went to, we're booked. At this point, it's around 4:30 in the morning, and I'm schlepping mamish, I feel homeless. And by the way, I learned a lesson. When Rabbi Eliyadah says you should do something, he's Mora Da'aso, you have to do it. That's just parenthetical. Just parenthetical lesson. I didn't listen to the rabbi, and there were consequences. Anyway, I'm schlepping. I was sweating, starving, exhausted. I'm like, should I go sleep at the Kaisel? What do you do at this point? I don't want to start waking up people. There's no hotel available. Do I go to sleep in the park like the quintessential homeless people? And I'm like, God, this is so interesting. Like, it's exactly how this trip is supposed to be. But I did meditation, I did breath work. I was looking for other stuff that I'm not going to talk about. But the bottom line is, shum davar lo yavad. I was angry, frustrated, annoyed. Anyway, I'm schlepping and walking. Okay. Suddenly I see a boy, a student, a yeshiva bacher. Between you and me, he looked smashed. Smashed. Yeah, he was wearing a jacket. I think he was wearing a hat, a payas, a big yarmulke. He seemed smashed. His eyes were somewhere else. And he's like going down the street. I was like this. And I'm with my suitcases, just thinking, give me a bed, anyone. At this point, I'll go, I don't know, I'll sleep with 4 people. I need a bed. He stops. He says, Rabbi YY? Nobody in Israel has a bed for you? What schleppst du? Nobody? You don't have one friend in Israel that can give you a bed? What's going on? And he's laughing. He's so happy. He hugs me. He kisses me. What's your name? He tells me his name. He says, you don't understand. He said, my life is broken. I'm talking to Hashem. And I'm like, God Almighty, I need your help. Give me somebody I can talk to. But not anybody. Somebody I could talk real Torah with, deep Torah, authentic Torah, Torah that changes your life. I just finished my conversation with God. Look who I meet. I'm like, you have a bed? He says, yeah, my grandparents have a moiridic apartment right near Bells. There's 2 beds in the house. Come. I actually have a motorbike, but in my condition, I'm not taking my bike. So I'll join you in the taxi. So he gets a get, we get in, and I'm like, wow. We come to his apartment. Of course, it's a bacher. So one bed has a little carved out dalet al dalet for him. The other one was overwhelmed with a lot of stuff. So he cleans it up, and we start talking. We start talking. 7 in the morning, we're still talking. A deep, bright, sensitive, really special soul who went through a lot of challenges. And the marriage of his parents was a disaster. And their family, a lot of disintegration. And this one wasn't talking with this one. And he himself was suffering terribly. Now, as he comes into the house, instinctively, he goes to the drawer and he opens it up. I'm like, what are you doing? He said, I smoke weed. That's how I survive. So I told him this conversation is going to be more interesting than the weed. Stick it out. He looks at me 7 in the morning. I still didn't have weed. Wow, miracle. But a real conversation, you don't need weed. Anyway, I got my bed. I slept for a few hours. Got up. I davened. We spoke a little more. Off to Tveria. Tveria was supposed to be a nice hotel. I walk into the room, and I see the 10 makas viscerally displayed. I'm not going to get into details, but I understood what kinim is, arev, shchin, all the makas. Torah came to life, mamash. And I'm like, I was trying to convince my wife to come with me. I'm like, Baruch shechiyanu v'kemanu. This is men only exclusive. You know, in yeshiva they taught us, what do you eat? If it doesn't eat you, you eat it. That's the system in yeshiva with the starvation. But this was a pchina that they will eat you if you're not very careful. I go into the shower before Shabbos, it's even worse. I can't describe it. So even though I thought I'll have a nice Mitzvah Shabbos there, the second Shabbos was over, I'm out. I had enough of the 10 makas. I'm not like Pare. I learned my lesson earlier. I learned my lesson at the end of the Eira. I didn't have to wait for boy for the last 3 makas. But the Shabbaton went late with speeches and mices. It was late at night. So who do I end up in? I call the guy, I need your bed again. I come to his house, it's 1 in the morning. I'm there another night with him. We didn't have weed for a second night. It was the best Shabbos of my life. And then Sunday night, I can go back to that other apartment, which was very nice. And then Monday I flew back. A funny thing happens. I tell the story to my wife. She's like, come on, your drama, drama. For Pesach, I met Rabbi YY the first time at a Pesach program called KMR. So we had a program. We're sitting and having lunch with my family in our room, and a woman just comes in. Can I interrupt you? You know how Jews are, right? Not only in Israel. Can I interrupt you? Yeah, sure. Of course, we were waiting. What do you think we do? We wait, of course. Just want to tell you a story. It's a story. It's nothing else. Of course, it's the story. She says, it's so funny, I just heard your name because I was in a restaurant last week. And I hear a boy and another boy talking to each other. And they're tipsy. And this boy keeps on talking about you, Rabbi Y, Rabbi Y, Rabbi. And I'm curious because I know I'm coming to see you Pesach to hear your stuff. So I go over to him and say, why do you keep on mentioning his name? So he tells me, but he probably made up a story because he was stoned. She's telling my wife and me. He tells me 4 a.m, he's roaming in the street like a beggar with suitcases. Mishalachim don't behave like this. Mishalachim. They prepare an address with a house. Good, they come to your house for 2 nights, they stay for 7 months. That's true. Self-respect. He's schlepping, you would think the guy had just landed. And I asked Hashem for somebody to talk to. And he says, it changed my whole life, saved my life. So she says, I just had to tell this to you. You think it's a true story? You just made it up. I turned to my wife and said, Esty, you didn't believe me. That's as true as it gets, and it's even more embarrassing. A few days later, I get a call from his Rosh Yeshiva. He's in a big yeshiva, nice yeshiva. Rosh Yeshiva said, what did you do? This kid for years couldn't stay still after 2-3 hours, and every night he smoked what he smoked. What did you do? Because I have a few hundred Talmidim. Can I send them? But I have to tell you, my dear friends, and I share this with you. That's why I couldn't share it with anybody, because it's a Ra'anana story, the consequence of not listening to Rabbi Eliada Goldvicht. I'm just telling that to you. I've learned in my life that the moment we can let go of our egotistical expectations, even our spiritual ones, we become shluchim of Hashem. And the moment you become a channel for the divine, miracles happen through you, not because you and I am great, but because God is great. Yisgadal v'yiskada shmei Rabbah. And the moment we become part of Ba'olma Divrach Hirusei, v'yamlich malchusei, then through you comes v'yatzmach porkane v'karev meshiche. I apologize from the Ashkenazim. It's Aramaic good words, they're holy words. And this is really, I don't remember if you remember what we spoke last time, the night that it all happened, all this action. We spoke about Ada Lo Yada. What does it mean, Ada Lo Yada? Purim, there's a mitzvah to drink Ada Lo Yada, till you don't know. So everybody didn't get drunk. That's not what it means. Ada Lo Yada is very, very deep avodah. It's the work of going to a place where you don't have to figure things out. Ada Lo Yada, you don't have to figure things out with your mind. You can't live life with your mind. It's like eating cheesecake with your brain. You ever saw a Jew in front of a cheesecake? He says, instead of eating it, I'm going to think about it. You don't eat cheesecake or gefilte fish or a kale salad or quinoa with kale inside with your brain. You need your taste buds. You don't experience life with your brain. You experience life by living, by breathing, by experiencing, by emoting, by feeling, by sharing. Share. That's how we experience life. the more we have the courage to transcend our braininess and our need to be brainy and figure things out, the more we could be joyfully present to every moment of life. It's not easy. For us Jews who are highly intellectual, we like to control life through understanding. If I know what's coming and it's predictable, I could control it. Even when you walk into the room. You walked into the room, I right away put you in a category. If not, I ask AI to give me your background. And they tell me, do I have to be scared of you, intimidated by you? But it's a game of manipulation, even if it's very, very subtle. That's not life. That's a form of death. To live means to be vulnerable, present, open to the fact that every one of us is vulnerable. But all love exists in vulnerability. The frequency of love, surrender, trust, faith is a very vulnerable frequency. It's presence. I don't know what's going to happen the next moment. I don't know even what's going to happen in our interaction in this room, but I want to feel your heartbeat. I want you to feel my heartbeat. This was the power of Yosef. Chazal say, Roya Yisrael Hazina Noya Katzayin Yosef. We're all called Yosef. Why? Because he nourished the Jewish people in a time of hunger. But the great Hasidic masters say it wasn't only physical food. He gave the Jewish people the paradigm to be able to live through the famine of exile spiritually. What was his energy? What was his koyach? His power was, he told his brothers, you didn't sell me. Kilemichya shlachani elakim lefnechem. I wasn't sold, I was sent. I'm not a victim of circumstances. I am an ambassador of the divine. I'm an ambassador of love, light, hope. I'm an ambassador of healing. I'm an ambassador of redemptive geula consciousness. And to be an ambassador of Hashem, I don't have to figure it out. Let Him figure it out. Now, I have to tell you the truth. I was angry at 4 o'clock in the morning. I was like, enough. I've given a lot of speeches during the last 2 days. Mani mevakesh. Of course, I started to tell myself, oh, you spoiled brat. There are soldiers in Gaza. You know when you that guilt and shame? Like, oh, you need a bed. Really? And what are they sleeping on? They're not sleeping. They're under a tank, on top of a tank, waiting for who knows what's happening. But that's, intellectual, mental chatter. My visceral, my nervous system was angry. It wasn't letting go. I tried to breathe. And then at that moment, I realized that, yeah, we have different parts to us. But when you learn how to acknowledge the different parts with empathy, because we have parts that are very scared, you can also tune into the frequency of surrender, vulnerability, trust, and faith, what we call in Judaism, emunah. The Jewish world has a little politics in Israel and also other places. I was once invited by a school for a Shabbaton. And they invited me 6 months in advance, which is a big chiddush for Jews. It's usually a few days, a few weeks, if they're yekas, a little longer. A guy once called me to come to California the next night. So I said, I'm booked already. He said, but I put up signs that you're coming. So he's going to blame me for not showing up. Classic. He put up signs that I'm coming. And it was a beautiful Shabbaton. I remember we sent our children to my in-laws so me and my wife can have a beautiful Shabbos together. We were going. A few hours before Shabbos, it was a winter Friday, I get a call from the school because of politics, they canceled the Shabbaton. He called me that day. I was furious at them. I was sorry, I'm embarrassed, this is it. It's almost Shabbos. So I say, Esther, we're here, we have nowhere to go. So I called a friend of mine if we can eat by them. Okay, we ate by them Friday night. But I have to be honest, I was fuming for 2 reasons. First of all, it was not menschlich. Second of all, I gave it away to them, and I could have given it to somebody else. It was also a loss. In any case, we come home from the meal. My wife is tired. She goes to sleep. I'm also tired. I go to the couch, and I'm learning. I thought I'll fall asleep within 5 seconds, usually what happens. 3 in the morning, I'm still not sleeping. I don't know why. So I check my wife if she's fine. I don't know. I'm checking. You could get superstitious in the middle of the night. I'm looking here. I'm looking there. I don't see a reason that I shouldn't be sleeping. I go back to the couch. I can't fall asleep. I can't fall asleep. So I had a library. It's a building. I had a library on the 4th floor where I worked. So I said, you know what, I need a safer. I wanted to look something up. Let me go up. So I go up 4 floors. It's Friday night, 3 o'clock in the morning to get the safer. And I'll bring it back down. I can't sleep. I'll learn. I come up, I think, the 2nd or 3rd floor. I kid you not, there was a teenager sitting on one of the steps, deeply immersed in thought. So I stop. I say, Shabbat Shalom. Good Shabbos. How are you? He doesn't answer. I look at his eyes. Doesn't look good to me. So I sit down near him. I say, what's happening? You need anything? Do you need a bed, maybe? This is before, a couple of years ago. Do you need a bed, maybe? Get away from me. Really didn't look good. I put my hand on his shoulder. And I said, you want to talk to me? What's bothering you? Maybe I can help you. And even if I can't, share with me. Get out of my life. And as he said that, he jumps up and he runs in to one of the apartments. The door was slightly open. He runs in. I don't know why, but my instinct told me, follow him. So I followed him. He slammed the door on me, but I put my foot in. So the door slammed on my foot, but it wasn't locked. And I run in. He runs away. He goes into the kitchen. As I follow him to the kitchen, I see there's a whole bottle of tablets. And he threw them all into his mouth. And I understood immediately. So I shoved his hand. So he dropped it. And most of them came crashing down. And he got so confused, he spit it out. And he started to physically wrestle me. And he said, I wanted to end everything. I wanted to end my despair, my pain. You just destroyed me. Get out of my life. Who asked you to be here? I wanted to terminate everything and end this crisis. And he literally starts physically beating me. Thank God I was overweight then. Today, whatever. Still lose 50 pounds, but we're working on it. It was worse then. It was worse, more anxiety. So I was bigger. It was a fight. So 3:30 in the morning, Rabbi YY Jacobson is wrestling a yeshiva bacher. Physically, literally. He was punching me and kicking him. And finally, after, 20 minutes, 30 minutes of wrestling, I pinned him down to the bed. I was sitting on both of his arms. First, he cursed the living daylights out of me for destroying his potential to end his life. But like after a half an hour, he melted. He got out of the insanity, and he just started to sob. And he told me about his entire life experience. And it was very, very difficult. He suffered terribly. And he wanted to end his life. I stayed with him, on him. Forgive me. Just telling you how it happened. Till around 7 or 8 in the morning. These stories don't happen every night to me. And I do have a bed in the hotel at Malach Hamisha, but thank you. I'm not mamish homeless. I have a wife, I have kids, I have parents. They always gave me a home, Baruch Hashem. אבל לפעמים זה קורה, כן? כשהשם רוצה זה קורה. 8 o'clock in the morning, I have a shiur. Shabbos morning, I teach the Likutei Torah, the Balatanya, so I had to go. I didn't want to cancel the shiur. A lot of people wait. So I brought him down to my apartment. My wife was up. I said, Esti. I told her what happened. I said, I'm going to go to the shiur. I'm going to daven. There's a very fast minyan, like the fastest minyan in Brooklyn. You know, they're finished by the time you're done Adon Olam, they're done. You know those minyanim, right? They get to the Kiddush. They have to get to the Kiddush like 6 hours before the Sikkim, so they could sleep the rest of the day. Why not wake up a little later and then, whatever. I don't know how it works, but shine. So, I said, I'll be right back. Fine, he's fine. You could just give him some food, fabreng with him. So my wife graciously said, yeah, no problem, I got this. I went, I gave my shiur, I didn't say anything, I davened fast, I came home, we spent the rest of the day with him. Mitzvah Shabbos, I put him in touch with somebody I knew who's an expert in this. And today, thank God, he's a very, very successful young man. And I told my wife, I said, if they would have not canceled his Shabbaton, his funeral would have been on Sunday. Because they canceled the Shabbaton because of their petty politics, his life was saved. And then I realized, you know, in life, there's a bigger picture that nobody ever sees. If we have the privilege of seeing a little bit of it, it's tremendous. I had the privilege of seeing 2 times. Petty politics, canceled the Shabbaton. But God had a completely different reason to cancel the Shabbaton. I had the schus to save a life. And not listening to Rabbi Goldwich, which is a big sin. But the tshuva for that was that I had to stay up for 3 nights in a row, talking to a teenager. But then I realized there's a whole other plan. If I would have had my good apartment, because I would have understood that this person is not giving it to me, this boy's tefillah and this boy's life would have been in a very, very different place. It's interesting. Now he comes to my classes. Most people there don't understand where our relationship began, because it wasn't yet the time to reveal it. But he sits in my classes, and I'm looking at him, and I'm like, how did we meet? In each of our lives, there's parts that you can figure out. Most of it, you probably can't. We go through loss. We go through grief. So many of us go through trauma. We go through pain. Some of your children may be suffering from mental illness, God forbid, from personality disorders. Your marriage may be struggling. One of your children may be struggling mentally, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically. You may be struggling. We struggle with God, with ourselves, with others. The only people I know who are perfect are the people I don't know. You didn't get that? Get out. Whoever is perfect, leave now. This speech is not for you. Bye. Go. The only marriages I know that are perfect, besides my shviger, it was a joke. Relax. The only marriages I know that are perfect are the marriages I don't know well. And when you're in it, it's hard, it's difficult. There's so many questions. But you cannot experience life when you're in the mental chatter of questions. Not because we're afraid of questions, but because the soul is rooted in a much deeper place than questions or answers. We live life by living, by breathing, by loving, by receiving love and by giving love, by surrendering to something that is so deep and transcendent, but yet so healing and comforting. The Zohar, we had a Shabbos of Kabbalah. The Zohar asks the question, God speaks to Moshe right in the beginning of Bo, the new portion. And what does he say? Bo el Paroi, come to Pharaoh. That's not how you say it grammatically. Grammatically, you should say, Lech el Paro. That's what he said earlier. Go to Pharaoh. If I send you on a mission to go to somebody, you say, go to that person, not come to that person. So the Zohar says, for the first time in his life, Moshe was overwhelmed from anxiety and fear. Because all other times he met Pharaoh at the river, at the Nile Delta. You know, Pharaoh used to go to the Nile Delta for an early jacuzzi and for some other stuff that he had to do. He had to take care of business. If you remember Rashi. But this was the first time Hashem told Moshe, go in to his inner sanctuary. Chadre lifnei cheder. Idre lifnei idre is the words of the Zohar. And Moshe said, no, I could take on Pharaoh outside. But inside his inner chamber, Moshe was struck by fear. And he wouldn't go. Until Hashem said, Boy el Para. Don't go. Come. You know why? I'm coming with you. I can't tell you go. You can't tell somebody go there. Come. What does this mean psychologically, my dearest friends? Sometimes we face adversity in a much more diluted form. You can do that. You have a good support system. Maybe you have a good therapist. You have a good spouse. You have a good friend. You have a good sibling. You have a good neighbor. You have a good rabbi. Many rabbis. You could talk to them. But sometimes the creator of the world sends you into the innermost chamber of Pharaoh, which psychologically means you're challenged to face the deepest forms of pain, of grief, and sometimes toxicity, dysfunction. Everyone in their own way. Sometimes you have to face stories from the past that you never dealt with. Sometimes you have to face wounds and scars and deep, deep emotional stuff that may have been buried in my conscious or even my subconscious. Maybe much of my life, yet it wreaked havoc, and sometimes it wreaks havoc unconsciously. You may have asked yourself, why are my relationships so torturous? I'm a good person. Why do I feel so much dissonance? Why is there so much anxiety in my life? And you don't know the answer. Why? I did everything right. And you start asking questions, and maybe I'll say more to Hillel, maybe I'll give more tzedakah, maybe I'll learn more. But it's not working. It's really not working. But there's a very, very deep moment here. Bo el Parai. You were called to face the deepest spaces of toxicity. I want to tell you what happens then. When you face those levels of darkness, it's not just you who's liberated. You empower all of the Jewish people and really all of the world to get out of their shackles. People take for granted the power of inner spiritual and emotional work. Some people even think it's selfish. Oh, dealing with your emotions. Right? There's always an ant who thinks you're selfish. Put one foot ahead of another foot. Be a foot soldier. I don't care about your emotions. But it's not true. In the generation of redemption, and we are in the generation of redemption, the relationship needs to be very, very deep. And you can't have a deep relationship with anyone, including yourself and God, if you don't work through your wounds. I can have a deep relationship with my spouse, with my children, with myself, with my friends, with my neshama, and with Hashem. If half of my heart is shut down, if half of my emotions have been amputated, if my wires that are channeling the source of life have been cut, and this is not with judgment, it's with a lot of empathy to understand that in the long traumas of exile, of galus, and grief and pain in Eretz Yisrael and the diaspora, the Jewish people survived amazingly well. Anyone who wants a model of survival, it's Klal Yisrael. And we have song after song of kvetching and crying and sobbing and weeping. You know our songs. We survived and survived and survived. In fact, we turned them all into our best unhealthy foods. I told you once, I think I told this to you. Pesach, we don't just defeat Pharaoh. We took Pharaoh, we turned him into a matzah ball. We like eating them. We took Haman, we turned them into a Hamantash. We took Antiochus, we turned them into a Latka. But the funny thing is, all these three foods are carbs, which means they're killing you. So I don't know who has the last laugh, because Parai, Haman, Antiochus are still killing us. Now they're killing us with the Hamantash and the Latkas. It has to be saturated in oil for 8 days because of the miracle of 8 days. And we also eat it for 8 days nonstop because the menorah burnt the whole night. That's why some people eat it 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning. I was once at an event. There was the president of Brooklyn College, a nice Irish woman, and she asked me, why do Jews eat latkes and donuts on Hanukkah? So if she would have been Jewish, I could have gone like this and said, because the oil was supposed to burn for 1 night. It burned for 8, so therefore, 2,500 years later, we eat latkes because we put it in oil for 8 years, and we eat it. For a Yiddish cup, that's perfect logic. But for the Irish, they don't think that way. So I needed a more simple explanation. So the simple explanation is because the Greeks were into looks, aesthetics, sports, and Olympics. Hanukkah is our victory against the Greeks. So we eat foods that will ensure that we never, ever look like them. This is a very deep Kabbalistic answer. Yeah? So we take our enemies, first of all, we write their obituaries on Wikipedia. You can go right now to Titus and write his obituary. But we turn them into food. And that's powerful, let's face it, because for 2,000 years Jews did this. The Dalai Lama in 1989 called together some Jews as a book by a comment. It's called The Jew and the Lotus. He called a minion of Jews, and he asked a question. He's been exiled from Tibet by the Chinese since the 50s, and he's afraid that the new generation will not be able to maintain the true traditions of Buddhism because they're in exile. So he calls the Jews who managed 2,000 years later to maintain tradition to find out how. Interesting that the Dalai Lama understood who to ask this question. So for much of our history, our story was a story of survival, resilience, and fortitude, which is incredible. But my friends, it's time to go to the next step. The Heilige Ostrovtzer Rebbe. You heard of the Ostrovtzer Rebbe? asks a question. It says, when Yaakov left his home and ran away from Esav to Lavan, he spent 14 years where? In the yeshiva of Shem and Never. Asked the Holy Ostrovtzer, what did he learn for 14 years by Shem and Never that he couldn't learn by Avram and Yitzchak? Tell me. What did Shem and Never offer that Avram and Yitzchak didn't offer? 63 years he lived with Avram and Yitzchak. Avram 15 years, the rest with Yitzchak. Why did he have to go to the yeshiva of Shem and Never? What, they had a different shit? It was like a brisker yeshiva? What was the difference? What did he learn there? Kabbalah, Pnimi, what did he learn by Shem and Never? So the Ostrovtzer Rebbe answers, and I saw a very similar answer was given by Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, the Rosh Yeshiva of Torah Vadas, I think in his Sefer Emes Liakov. And he says that in Eretz Yisrael, Yaakov learned Torah's Eretz Yisrael, but he didn't know Torah's Haggalos. How can you be a Jew in Mesopotamia? How can you be a Jew by Lavan? How do you Jew in Choron? I know how to be a Jew in the Holy Land. How do you be a Jew in Choron? 14 years he had to learn Torah's Haggalos. That's what the Ostrovtzer Rebbe says, Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky says. Because it's a different Torah. How do you know? The Gemara says about Mitzvah that Reb Zayda fasted 100 fast. With one version, 41, 100 fast. You know why? To forget Talmud Bavli, because he was making Aliyah to learn Talmud Yerushalmi. Now, most people today would say, what, you're going to forget Bavli to learn Yerushalmi? It's the best thing. Torah is built on the previous information. That's the way we learn, which is just learning the words. But Reb Zayda understood Yerushalmi is a different way of thinking. It's a different paradigm. You have to forget the old to learn the new. So he had to learn Torah Haggalos. Now it's a different story. Now Jews need to learn Torah Hagula. What does it look like to be a redeemed Jew? What does it look like to be a healthy, vibrant, happy, joyfully Jew with a spine? What would the leadership of Israel look like if they didn't live with the trauma of Jewish insecurity? What would the leadership, the Rebbe used to beg the prime ministers of Israel, tell them the first Rashi, the whole Washington will listen. Trump would have klois hanefesh if he told him the first Rashi. Yeah, I spoke to Trump. I introduced him. Oh, they would love it. The Jews are embarrassed. The Jews are embarrassed. Ma yoimru hagoyim. They would love it. Tell them the truth. The Arabs lie every time they open their mouth, but with pride, and the whole world believes them. And Jews are scared to speak truth. This is the trauma of Golus. It's not their fault. Jews have been so broken, they're busy appeasing and appeasing and appeasing and appeasing. Winston Churchill said, appeasement is feeding the alligator in the hope you're going to be eaten last. That's the story since the 6-Day War. Torah Hagul, but I want to talk personally. Israel needs healing. The Jewish people need healing. Individually, do you know how to step into your power, to your greatness, to your redemption? We know how to survive. We did it well. God, we know how to survive. Yalla, chasal de Pesach. Bayal parai. Don't be afraid. Because when you face those deepest fears, Hashem says, I'm not sending you. I'm not telling you go. I'm coming with you. You'll see when you go into those places, it's scary. But God is there deeper than in any other place. Because when the ego is gone, you right away feel infinity. You right away feel Ein Sof. I was coming back from California for a Shabbaton. Walking out of the plane, I have the privilege of walking side by side with the former chief rabbi of Israel. Many of you know him, Rav Yisrael Meir Lau Shlita from Tel Aviv. So he shares with me something he heard from the second chief rabbi of Israel, Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac Halevi Herzog. The president today is named after him, Yitzchak Isaac Halevi. Because his father, Chaim Herzog, the president of Israel, was a son of Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac Halevi Herzog. So Rabbi Lau tells me something he heard from Rabbi Herzog. Rabbi Herzog told him he heard this from the first chief rabbi, Rabbi Avram Yitzchak HaKoyen Cook. Listen, now Rabbi Lau is a repertoire of a lot of Vertlach, if you know what I'm talking about. But even he, after he told this to me, he said, Ze yafeh, lo? Ze yafeh, lo? Amarti ken, v'ani od egnov et ze, v'od ech ani eshtamesh baza. כמו שכתוב בגמרא, גונב מן הגנב פטור. אני לא אמרתי זה. אני לא מחוצף, אני ג'נטלמן. אני סתם עושה בדיחה. It says in Yeshaya Hanavi, I think Perek Mem, we do it in the Haftarah of Kisavai. Yeshaya Hanavi says, I'm looking at the Jewish people and I see them coming back to Eretz Yisrael in the time of Gul, in the time of Mashiach. And I take a look and I see, Hinei cha'ov tu'ufena v'chayoinim el aruba yiseyem. They're flying back to the Holy Land like clouds. Avim are clouds. Ka'av tu'ufena. Ta'uf, la'uf. V'chayoinim el aruba yiseyem. Like doves flying back to their arubos, to their dove coats. איך אומרים dove coat בעברית? אתם יודעים מה זה dove coat? לא יודעים. Dove coat is a home for doves. Okay, you'll figure it out. It's called arubotayim in the language of the Nevi'im. The aruba, today they call it a skylight. It's a place where doves build their nests. Ask the Mefarshim why the redundant metaphor. They're going to fly back like clouds, and they're going to fly back like doves. The Malbim also asks it, why the redundancy? So Rav Lau told me as follows. He said, two types of Jews come to Eretz Yisrael for two different reasons. When clouds are moving, it's not by volition. They're coerced. There are winds that involuntarily move the clouds, and we're grateful for them. Because if there would be no winds, the sun would suction up the water, which would be vaporized, form into clouds, and when there would be a lot of pressure, the rain would descend right back to the place where it came from, which means only the oceans would have water, and the rest of the world would be a desert, and we would all die. Thank God for Ruach Sa'arais. I don't know if you appreciate winds, but winds are essential to survival. They move the clouds around, so when it rains, there can be produce, there can be agriculture, we can drink, the animals can live, and civilization could flourish. L'shevet Yitzhara. But the clouds are not asked. And if you have a storm, if you have a windstorm, if you have a Ruach Sa'ara, if the winds are going 50 miles per hour, 100 kilometers per hour, the clouds move faster and swifter. If it's lighter winds, the clouds move slower, but they're just responding to the pressure of the winds. What about doves? When you ask a dove, why are you flying back to your nest? Somebody is forcing you. He says, no, my mate is there. My young are there. That's where I want to be. So why did you leave? I had to get food. I was on a mission. I was a shliach. I had a mission. But this is my place, especially doves, because doves are the only birds and animals that are monogamous. You know, they stay in a relationship till the end. Doves, it's amazing. They don't betray their mate even after. It's an incredible thing, unlike most other animals. So when they go back, they do it with affection. So Rav Lau tells me, B'Shem Rav Herzl, B'Shem Rav Kook, he says there's two types of Jews who come to Eretz Yisrael. He says, I came to Eretz Yisrael in 1946. Why did I come? Where else should I go? I should go back to Pietrikov. My father was gassed. My mother was murdered. My siblings were murdered. I should go back to Poland. Where? Where should I go to? I should go to Lublin. I should go to Pietrikov. Where should I go to? Ka'af to Ufena. I was like a cloud. A little kid survived Buchenwald. The winds pushed me. I ended up in Eretz Yisrael. I was like a cloud. There's other Jews, he says, Chayonim el Aruba Yiseyem. They come with love, with affection, with passion. But I want to expand it. There's two types of Jews throughout history. There are Jews who fly back to Jewish consciousness, who come back to their souls like clouds, the winds of anti-Semitism, telling them, you're evil, you're sick, you're responsible for all the evil in the world. And Jews are like, what? It's what happened in America after October 7th. Jews, for 100 years in America, successfully assimilated. They became creme de la creme of American culture. But many of you are Americans, you know what I'm talking about. Hollywood, Wall Street, journalism, academia. Come on, unbelievable what happened. The first generation of Jewish history, you could successfully assimilate, truly successfully, not like in Berlin and in Spain in previous generations, or so Jews thought. Or so Jews thought. They finally made it. The American melting pot accepted Am Yisrael as regular human beings. A mensch wie alle Menschen. Wow! Unbelievable. And in the process, we lost 1 million or 1.5 million Jews to complete assimilation. Comes October 7th, and the next day, nobody could condemn what happened. The women's rights, the feminists, that if you make a microaggression and you look at them the wrong way, there's a demonstration against you. If you made a comment when you were 16 years old, and the mashmos, if you learn Tosfos, the mashmos of your comment was a microaggression. If you say something nice about George Washington, you're canceled. And here, atrocities of the Middle Ages, ein poitzepeh. The best academic institutions that Jewish parents paid $400,000 to get their kids to Harvard. It turns out they don't know the difference between Churchill and Hitler. They don't know the difference. Maybe Churchill was worse than Hitler. And suddenly Jews are like, what? Ka'avtu fena. That's the winds pushing the clouds. Know who you are. Learn your greatness. Learn your beauty. And it's a huge step. But that must lead to something much deeper. Chayonim el arubaiseyem. Don't be a Jew because everybody hates you. That's not a way of building a life. Be a Jew because God loves you. And it's true in every person's life. Don't just respond to your negativity and wounds. Chayonim el arubaiseyem. See your light. See your greatness. Open yourself up to your infinity. And then, ubou ha'oivdim be'eretz Ashur, from the word oisher. Those who are lost in the prosperity of materialism. V'hanidochim be'eretz Mitzrayim. And those who are lost because of the distress and the anxiety of Meitzar or Gvul. And we have both types. Those who are lost in Ashur, in oisher. And those who are lost in Mitzrayim, in Meitzar, in distress. And both of them, B'ishtachavu l'Hashem, B'har HaKodesh, B'Yerushalayim. Amen v'Amen. Thank you very much.